Hey, good morning. I'm Patricia Murphy. It's Tuesday. This is Seattle Now. Have you ever pulled out your old teenage diary and just cringed about what you wrote all those years ago?
Our adolescent selves were unintentionally hilarious. So a lot of us kept really meticulous records of that time. Diaries, journals, letters, what have you. At the Salon of Shame, they get up and they read those things rather than keeping them hidden away in a basement or at their mom's house or somewhere else.
Seattle's Salon of Shame is turning 20 years old tonight. In a minute, we'll talk with Jeannie Yandel and Phyllis Fletcher, who've been part of the show since the very beginning. But first, let's get you caught up. The City Council is scheduled to discuss the renewal and amendment of Seattle's multifamily housing property tax exemption program today. I know, it's a lot, but basically it allows tax incentives for buildings that offer affordable units at below market rates. Today's vote would continue the program until 2029. A controversial amendment would allow landlords to double their time under the tax exemption while charging higher rents and allowing higher rent hikes in most units. The meeting starts at 2 p.m. The Earshot Jazz Festival is back. The month-long music extravaganza is in its 37th year, the first since Earshot's longtime executive director John Gilbreth retired. Check out the lineup. There's a wide range of performers and musicians playing at venues all over the city. Earshot runs through November 2nd. Get tickets and details at earshot.org. And travel note, there are 3 scheduled ALCS games in Seattle this week between the Blue Jays and the Mariners. Whether you'll be rushing to watch the game or trying to avoid traffic, here's your heads up. On Wednesday, the game starts at 5:08 p.m. Thursday's game starts at 5:33 p.m. And if the series goes to Game 5, they'll start that at 3:08 p.m. on Friday. Check back for more headlines on tonight's episode of Seattle Now. Tonight, one of Seattle's most beloved storytelling events is turning 20 years old, the Salon of Shame. If you're unfamiliar, it's a window into our cringiest selves, a place where people willingly read pages from their teenage diary. There's bad poetry, maybe even a love letter never sent. All the angst and joy on stage in front of a live audience at Theater Off Jackson.
Okay. At the bottom of this page, I also had a list of people I'd probably do it with. And mine is a mix of like people I knew and then like superstars. So Harrison Ford, Argo Thompson, he lived on the street, Bruce Springsteen, Darrett Sanders, Matt Scharf, guy on bike.
Today, we're looking back on 20 years of shame with 2 of the show's founders, Jeannie Yandel and Phyllis Fletcher. You may also recognize their voices from KUOW. They're both on our editing staff, and Jeannie is the host of KUOW's podcast, Meet Me Here. Jeannie, Phyllis, so glad you're here.
Hello.
Oh, me too.
All right, so I understand before the Salon of Shame ever went on stage, you did sort of a test run in the basement of founder Ariel Meadow Stallings. Let's talk about that night.
It was really intimate and
Yes.
incredible. And it's like we instantly knew we had something special. People, like somehow the amazing network of people that she and I and Jeannie were connected to brought incredible stuff. And like, it was hilarious. It was moving. It was fantastic.
Now, Phyllis, you read for that first event, yeah?
I did.
All right.
You want
Tell
me
us
to go
about
for
it. I think we should hear a bit
Can
more
I
about
just
that.
hype this for a moment and on record say that in the 20 years of doing this, this may be one of my top 5 favorite readings of all time. I'm just going to say that.
All right.
In 1987, I was 15, and I was taking what was then called traffic ed, driver's ed, at Ballard High School for the summer. And our teacher was really cool, and he also had us watch a lot of TV. So this is Tuesday, July 7th, 1987. Had simulation and driving 10 to 2. In the first half hour, we watched I Love Lucy After our simulation and video, we watched a little of the Oliver North Iran-Contra hearings. I saw a little of it before I left, and he just seemed to be saying the same stuff all morning. I do not recall. I believe at this point in time. It was frustrating sitting there watching this guy who's got to know what's up, just saying, I don't know. But in a way, I felt sorry for him. He had these sad eyes, and I just couldn't help it. I'm a fool for sad eyes, though. Yes.
Phyllis, it sounds like you had two crushes going on there.
Yeah, the perceptive listener will pick up on the fact that I had a thing for Oliver North. That was very inappropriate. And I definitely also was conflicted about my driver's ed teacher, who was amazing and totally above board. But I did go and get coffee for him. Like, this was a regular thing that I also was conflicted about, which emerges in longer versions of the reading. But one of the most rewarding things about reading this on stage is the people who come up to me afterwards and they're like, Oliver North was hot, though.
Oh, man.
Yep.
Jeannie, I understand you became the MC almost by default because you had burned all of your diaries. You had no content.
It's true. I didn't have anything to share except for the note that I wrote myself the night I burned all my diaries. The burning plan was that it was like a rebirth ritual for me. And so I took them all out to my wooden back porch when I lived in Chicago. Famously flammable wooden back porch in Chicago. And I set all of my diaries on fire.
God.
And then I wrote myself a note saying that I was a phoenix rising from the ashes and my new life began when the fire went out, and that I knew that making pottery was going to be a big part of my new phoenix life, which is wrong. I took like 2 pottery lessons and I was like, this is stupid. And I never went back.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, that's why I was the MC. I was the only one who didn't have anything to read.
There's so much material for our teenage selves to put into our journals. But why do you think people like getting on stage and reading from their diaries? What does this part do? Because clearly they were never meant for public consumption at the time.
No. But there is that, like, kernel of your 15-year-old self that thinks you're right about everything. And it's like you're rewarding that person, but you're also exposing that person. And you're like claiming that aspect of yourself, but you're also like absolving yourself of any shame around it.
Yes. That's such a good description.
Oh, good.
The number of times I've had to sort of repeatedly lovingly harangue people to read for the first time tells me that at first they don't want to read. But I think the gift of doing this in front of an audience means that everybody else in the room also recalls being the know-it-all.
Yes.
And so there's an instant understanding and empathy.
As of late, I've gotten increasingly okay with being alone. It's the loneliness that gets me every effing time. I take comfort in books and music and being an artist, but that isn't enough. Then I get so frustrated and the only things I can think about are like prom and Peter, and it's so juvenile. I do know for sure that I want to do things to Peter. I can't tell what's up there. Well, I can. He doesn't like me, but I'm not sure why. And he borrows my iPod during AP History, and I don't even like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but I put a bunch on the iPod because I like it when my headphones smell like him.
Let's talk a little bit about the vibe, because it sounds like a welcoming place, free of shame.
Yeah.
We're all here to be shamed together.
In the most welcoming, loving way possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I still remember, you might remember my favorite guy. So he got up, he had a notebook, a little folder, like kind of a trapper folder kind of thing. And he said, when I was in high school, I was really self-conscious and embarrassed about everything. And, the one thing that I had was this letter from my girlfriend that I wrote myself. And he showed us how it had an envelope, like as though it had been through the mail, but he had deliberately ripped it so that where the stamp would have been wasn't there, and the postmark wasn't there.
That's right. He didn't want to waste a stamp.
Yeah, he didn't want to waste a stamp. And then he read this letter, and I remember being like, oh, like I got up with both of my hands in the air. I was like, yes.
Yeah, as soon as he said that he had made this girlfriend up and this was a letter he wrote to himself, the entire audience went, oh my God. Yeah.
Where is that dude? Dude, if you're hearing this, come back.
Please.
Yeah.
What does that say about us?
I mean, it's like we were rooting for him. You know? Like we could get it. And we are also rooting for the him now that gets it, that knows it's hilarious.
Everybody's in on the joke at this point.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about some more memorable moments from Salon of Shame that stick with you after all these years.
Well, Phyllis, I'm glad you brought up homework because I think some of my favorite readings have been papers and assignments that people have written, especially in like middle school. There was one reader who brought in a paper that she wrote, and the title of the paper was My Friends. And then the first line of the paper was, I have no friends.
Oh, wow.
And I think about that all the time.
Good one. Yeah.
Wow. There is no lonely like teenage lonely.
Listen, absolutely not. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You have also made your shows purposefully accessible to people who are deaf and hard of hearing. Let's talk about how that came about.
Yeah, that came about. So our founder has a best friend from childhood who is deaf, and there had been a misunderstanding about whether the show was going to be interpreted or not, and it was not interpreted, but her friend had shown up with her friends and was like, hey, you can't do this. Like, if you say you're going to interpret something, we need to interpret it. And we decided the person who would take care of that would be me. And I've been arranging for our shows to be interpreted ever since then. And another cool thing they can do is interpret the works of a deaf and hard of hearing writer.
Yes.
And so, like, we have had people come on stage and sign their work.
Wow.
And then our interpreters can read it for the hearing audience. And it's very cool.
You know, these days it seems fewer and fewer things last 2 decades. 20 years is a long time in 2025. So 20 years in, tell me something you've learned from the Salon of Shame.
What a good question. You won't regret reading. I've never had any reader come to me afterwards and say, boy, I wish I hadn't done that. They're all, like, to a person, stunned and delighted. And they feel like they've just been kind of embraced for maybe the parts of themselves that they have put away into an attic on purpose.
What does the future look like for the show? What are you hoping for?
Man, more of the same, man. And I mean, a cool thing is, now that we've been doing it for so long, there are people who are reading things from the era that we started in, which
Wow.
is a trip. That has happened. Yeah, like people reading their live journal or whatever it is. You know, and I think that, like, what I'm most hopeful for with the future of Salon of Shame is, like, it is something that gets to have us celebrate and be reminded of the value of original thought and our authentic thought in the age of AI. To be connected to what someone actually thinks and wants to express, even if it's only to themselves, there's nothing that can replace that.
I can't come up with anything better than that.
All right, well, then I'll just say amen and thanks so much for 20 years of Salon of Shame. Jeannie Yanda, longtime MC of Seattle's Salon of Shame, and Phyllis Fletcher, Deaf Community Liaison and Front of House. Thanks to you both.
This was so fun. Thank you.
Yay! Thanks for having us.
And the 20th anniversary show is tonight at Theater Off Jackson. Appreciate you listening to Seattle Now. Today's episode was produced by Andy Hurst. It was edited by Caroline Chamberlain Gomez. Our production team also includes Vaughn Jones, Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers, and Paige Browning. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you soon.